In a world where greed and corruption run deep, a group of outliers who, weary of the broken system, embraced a mysterious new currency that promises freedom but comes at a cost. Dirty Coin, the movie, probes into the underbelly of finance, crime, and rebellion. The film follows as Bitcoin miners battle corrupt governments, environmental myths, and mainstream misinformation. The line between revolution and destruction becomes rather shit. Almost had it. Almost had it.
Rather.
The line the line between revolution and destruction becomes razor thin. With regulators circling and temperatures rising, the stakes have never been higher. Join us for a talk with the director of the new award-winning movie Dirty Coin on episode number 748 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
If all else fails in my career, I could just go back to doing voiceover, Sir Lord Travis.
Yes, you could. That was nice. Nicely done. You should be in the movies or at least the cartoons.
I have a face for radio, so.
You have a face for cartoons.
Yeah, I could do cartoon voices too. That would be
You know what? You know what I was thinking, dude. So I saw this thing on LinkedIn, and it was a guy talking, but he had a Muppet that looked like him. And I have always thought how hilarious it would be if you and I had our own Muppets, custom Muppets. Dude, we can get them on Etsy. We can get custom Muppets. And how hilarious would it be to literally do a show with Muppets? And even like I was almost thinking like doing like little quick news shorts and videos with our own little Muppets. God, that would be hilarious. Dude, they're only like $700 to get them custom made. That'd be so hilarious.
Let's get Muppets.
Let's get Muppets.
Muppet me, bitches.
Dude, like a real one. And you get to put his hand up its ass just like you like. And then we get a.
As long as the Muppet doesn't put its hand up my ass, it's fine. That's like,
that's it.
You're the puppet, not me.
Not me. My hand goes up your ass, not the other way around.
Welcome to the show. In case it's your first time, this is what we do here. It's Bad Crypto Podcast, and bad is built into the name. Now in our 8th year, and this is a really, that's 3 really, so you know I really mean it, important episode. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. There's been a lot of films made about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but this film that is now in preview and about to be in wide release in theaters around the world is focused on a key topic that has been on the forefront of many minds, especially in the mainstream. We've all heard how horrible Bitcoin is for the environment, but is it really? And the film that we're going to explore today, Dirty Coin, goes into great depth to reveal the truth.
Yeah, this is a really good. For one, it's a great movie, so you're going to want to watch it, and you want to listen to Alana because she is brilliant and she's a friend in Puerto Rico. And instead of saying really, Joe, you could have said immensely.
Oh, is immensely equal to 3 reallys?
I think so. Exceptionally, tremendously, tremendous. Everyone knows this episode is tremendous. You can ask me. I'll tell you how tremendous. It's remarkable and tremendous. You're going to love it.
How many reallys is a fantastic? 2?
Probably 2.
Okay. Well, listen, this is important stuff, and you're going to really be excited to meet Alana and learn about Dirty Coin. You're going to want to go and see the film, but let's give you all the content. Here we go. We are in the presence of greatness, Sir Lord Travis. I mean, you see that there's another person here with us, right?
That is true. And automatically that makes them great.
Yes, it makes him great, and she's far better looking than both of us put together on our best day. But more than that, she's absolutely brilliant. Her name is Alana Mediavilla, and she is a Puerto Rican filmmaker, and she's produced and directed videos at Google. She's got a deep background in Silicon Valley's tech scene. She owned a creative production agency where she produced content for top tech companies. And in 2021, she returned to her native island of PR and founded Campo Libra, a production company dedicated to creative, innovative films and shows that focus on stories designed to open minds and push humanity forward. Alana, my friend, welcome to Bad Crypto.
Thank you. An honor to be here with you guys.
We are actually neighbors in Palmas del Mar, and it's a joy to know you and Rustin and your children. And you are Rufus's favorite place to go when we were out of town.
I believe it because he's so happy in my house.
He's such a good boy. But, through our friendship, discovered that you are a film producer and you have produced and created a very important new film, which I've had the pleasure of screening before wide release, as has Travis. And it's called Dirty Coin, the movie. And anybody that is interested at all in not just Bitcoin, but in countering the narrative out there of how Bitcoin mining is bad for the environment, boy, you need to see this film because it is an eye opener. So, Alana, what inspired you to create this film?
I wanted to see if what Bitcoin miners were saying was true. I had listened to Bitcoin podcasts, and first I heard that Bitcoin mining was bad for the environment. And I was in California at the time. I was really getting into Bitcoin and the possibilities of what, censorless money, permissionless money can do. But then when I found out it was bad for the environment, it was like, oh man, it's like finding out that your favorite food has like red dye number 3 and seed oils or MSG or something. You're like, oh man, this sucks. And so I started like looking into it to see what that meant. And at the time I was working at Google Cloud, which is the data center part of Google. So we were looking at, what's AI, ML. We were making films about like the magic that happens inside like the data center and big data. And so when I saw Bitcoin mining, I was like, oh, this is just a data center. And then I started digging in more and listening to podcasts. And then of course the mining CEOs were saying it wasn't bad. And, and I was just hearing a lot of conflicting information, and I wanted to see for myself if it was true, because if it was true, then not only is it not bad for the environment, it's a game changer for humanity, to have, a customer like that, a non-picky customer where it buys its electricity from. And so, yeah, so I just wanted to see it from my own eyes. I wanted to go to the mines. I wanted to ask the people that lived around it what the effects were. I wanted to talk to the utilities. I wanted to just see for myself if this was in fact as good as Bitcoin miners were saying that it was. And it kind of blew my mind because there were just so many different case studies that I discovered that I wasn't even aware of going into the project. So what inspired me was kind of just looking for myself if the potential of mining was as good as people were claiming it was.
I love it. So I had a chance to watch it last night, and what sort of struck me was the fact that, and I hadn't even really ever considered it, is that a lot of, utility companies and energy producing companies have a lot of wasted electricity that it seemed like to me, like while you were presenting it, like, oh, if you don't use it now, it's kind of like a hotel room that if you don't use it, then you lose it, right? And it's gone forever. However, when you turn that light switch on, the light switch comes on because there's extra energy waiting to be activated at any time. And so in a lot of areas, even some remote areas where they're using water to generate electricity, right? Hydroelectricity, maybe they're not utilizing all of that. So it seems like they can just create these mobile Bitcoin mining, storage units and just go plop them down and then start using that electricity. That's completely fascinating how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Not really a question, more so than, what was one of the most interesting sort of locations that you guys videoed at that were like, wow, it's a really good use case of extra electricity?
You know, let's go with the example that you were talking about in Malawi, for example. They've created the hydroelectric plants, and there's this village still doesn't have demand for electricity. They've never had electricity before. So they don't have refrigerators, they don't have air conditioners, they don't really have a need for it. So even when they get connected, now they have to buy appliances to consume the electricity. So they're creating all of this electricity, and it's just going to waste because they don't have batteries to store it, and even battery technology is not as advanced as we want it to be yet. So electricity, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's a current, it's going one direction, and it just kind of just dissipates in the other side if it doesn't get used. So it is not stored in the grid until somebody uses it. So there needs to be this constant production of electricity in order for the grid to be electrified, for power to flow. And so, yeah, you're basically creating. What's great about Bitcoin mining is that it's portable demand. So, like you were saying, and it's you plop your container in some location or a couple of these machines, because this is now where the beauty of how much electricity one of these machines consumes comes in. You don't need a whole container. You can bring 3 of these computers, 3 of these miners, and that will consume, very likely the excess electricity. You don't need to come with there's not a lot of infrastructure. There's not a lot of staff coming in and out. So it doesn't really disrupt the flow and the vibe of the village. Yet it's bringing the demand, a factory load to a village, but without bringing the infrastructure and the people and the coming in and out and some of the other components that can come from a customer that consumes that much electricity. So, I mean, there's obviously more case studies that I can go into, but
I think it's important, Alana, to point out that you premiered this film at the Bitcoin Film Festival in Warsaw this summer, right? Was it June, July, sometime?
So we premiered the day of the halving, so April 20,
April.
2024.
And you got a standing ovation. It took the Best Movie Award at the Bitcoin Film Festival, and it's received at least 5 nominations for Best Feature Documentary at a bunch of different U.S. and international film festivals, including the New York Independent Film Festival. You've done a bunch of screenings, well over a dozen to date. Washington, D.C. It's been featured in Bitcoin Magazine and Forbes. I want you guys to understand that people who are seeing this are walking away from the film going, holy cow. We know that they've lied to us about so many things, and all of this narrative around Bitcoin mining being bad. I believe your film demonstrates that is just another lie put out there for political purposes. What I took away, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that not only is Bitcoin mining not a drain on energy, but it actually ends up providing solutions around the world in numerous ways that can help solve the energy crisis.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the very same thing that's being demonized as being bad is actually the key that's going to that is unlocking potential energy in many places, because it's expensive to create transmission lines. It's expensive to, if you're going to do geothermals is really expensive. Everything contains a capital expenditure that, unless you're going to make that money back, then who's going to make that capital expenditure? Which country has the money for that? And often they get predatory loans that ultimately just indebts the country to the IMF kind of like forever. So, to be able to have a customer come and say, I will come and I will help you build the substations. I will provide the CapEx in order for you to, turn that river into electricity, or cascades, waterfalls, or volcano energy. Again, all of that. Like right now, Bitcoin miners are going to invest around $1 billion just in El Salvador, so that they can basically turned their geothermal volcanic at potential energy into electricity. So yeah, so it's just really interesting that it's it's actually the key. But what's interesting is that it's not Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin is very much still like the honey badger. It doesn't care. So it's not asking for permission for which country is it okay to electrify. Is it okay for us to bring this third world country into the first world era or into modern era? Is it okay, powers that be? No, that's not what's occurring. What's occurring is that, it's a bottom up solution to this problem, and it's just really beautiful to see, and it's completely decentralized. Everybody does it differently, and everybody has different budgets coming in, but there's a lot of investment going into Bitcoin mining. And some people ask why, and it's because you end up actually getting your Bitcoin for cheaper. So there's a financial incentive to get your the cheapest electricity possible, so you can make the most profit.
Yeah, it's because in a lot of places electricity is super expensive, and in some places it's not expensive at all. One of the things that I saw that was so crazy, which I had never thought about, was using like dumps, and using trash. The places where people dump your trash every single day, every week. They go and pick up your trash, and then it decomposes. And then it was a great visualization because, oh, now you got some hydrogen and now that's got to burn off. And then it gets to this place where there's carbon and methane. And then how they're using is really wild, how they were using these little like sort of tarp balloon things to collect the methane and then burn that methane and then use the power from the trash. That's some Back to the Future stuff over there, Alana.
Yes. So landfills, they're very often not connected to the grid. Some landfills are connected to the grid, but a lot of them are not, and they're just venting that methane and often flaring it, so that it's less warming for the environment than the methane. And all of that is just all of this beautiful energy that's just being put into the atmosphere for no good reason. But there's also, again, going back to, you have to install a power plant, in order to harvest that electricity. And in order to make it also, and it's still stranded because it's not connected to the grid. But after miners come in and they spend money on the plant, now the grid has an incentive to connect to that power plant as well, if it creates enough electricity for it to make sense.
So where is this narrative come from? And does it come from ignorance, or are there political forces? Are there, people in play here that are intentionally deceiving people, or they just not know better?
I think it's both. I think you have a few intentional deceiving folks. People that at this point should know better, that have been investigating Bitcoin for a long time, and are still kind of saying the same things that have been debunked.
So what's the motivation? Why, who benefits if from spreading a false narrative, when you could be a politician out there pushing this forward and become a hero?
Well, one example, Ripple's CEO, Chris Larson, he gave Greenpeace $5 million to create a Change the Code campaign for Bitcoin, imploring Bitcoin to change from proof of work to proof of stake, because it's better for the environment. And so Greenpeace has had a $5 million check to pretty much create different marketing stunts, which is, what Greenpeace does, and then just generate a lot of awareness around it. So that's one person that I can specifically name, Chris Larson, CEO of Ripple. He's one of the people so he's one. And then you have others. Bitcoin has always been a dirty coin for me, especially. Like,
dirty coin. Talk Bitcoin to me. Talk to me in Satoshis. Speak to me of mining facilities.
It sounds to me like a Don Henley song. Dirty laundry, but like the dirty money, have that little vibe in there. You know what was interesting watching the video, and it's an incredible movie. I would recommend everybody to watch it. One of the things on how this narrative got started, it seemed like, was somebody who didn't like Bitcoin wrote a blog post about it. That blog post then got taken as gospel, and then some college students used it to write a thesis on something. That thesis was then used by some other people to bring the narrative on, and then they had a congressional hearing about how bad Bitcoin was, all because the initial source, and they ignored all of the rising whatever, something that was within the original document. There was some, oh, here's
That
some
matters,
areas that
right?
are not correct. Well, and so explain that process, because that seems to be the origin of why Bitcoin energy seems bad, because of just one person who hated Bitcoin, and it just sort of scaled from there.
Yeah, so Alex DeVry is the Digiconomist, and he has a website called the Digiconomist where he keeps track of, the energy consumption of Bitcoin. And I think he started from a very good place. He was concerned. I had the same concern as his. Is Bitcoin mining actually bad for the environment? And he's Dutch, and he works for the Dutch central bank, which many people believe that there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there, because, for
He's
reasons.
not completely independent then, right? So there's some people who are paying his bills. I got you.
Right. And so he comes out with this study, which is, at the time he was a blogger. Now he's doing, I believe he's doing his PhD now. So now, he's going to legitimize his title, but he was just a blogger, and he put out, I think, one of the biggest flaws in how he looks at Bitcoin transactions. That he says every Bitcoin transaction equals, for example, 2 iPhones being thrown away, et cetera. But as we know, every block has a different amount of transactions, and how much money is being transferred in those transactions is also not something that's, looked at. So his math has been complete, and that's actually, it was his math that was used to come to the conclusion that by the year 2020, Bitcoin mining will consume all of the world's electricity. And we're in 2024, and we still have a lot of waste of electricity, and it's barely 1% of the consumption of the world's electricity. So, it has definitely been flawed. But even Bill Maher just this week had a whole thing about it, and he said that Bitcoin mining consumes 8% of. So I don't know where his sources were from. Some of them were Digiconomists. So again, going back to a paper that was done a long time ago, debunked a million times. So still using old data, and then also on top of that, I guess, layering onto that even more bad data. And so that's why I think it's a combination of people that don't know better, that are just repeating what they have seen, what they saw. And, some initial people that have basically created the argument that then others can echo ad infinitum.
Have you reached out? Has you had your publicist reach out to Bill Maher yet? I think, he occasionally, I feel like he actually wants to be correct. More and more as the left goes off the loony end, I feel like he finds himself being shoved towards the middle, or being left in the middle. And, I think that having this type of information, or you as a guest on the show, would really help
awesome
to get, proper information out there.
We should definitely reach out. Yeah. Because he says that nobody's talking about it. That was one of the things he says. Nobody's talking about it, but there are many people talking about it.
Yeah, and you're like, I made a movie.
I'm talking about it.
Hello.
Oh no, this is perfect. I let's manifest that. We'll go, let's get Alana on, Bill Maher. All right, we're gonna do it. I just sent a call out to the universe. Another one. So the movie really showcases all these different forms of alternative energy that are being used, right, to fix certain things in the environment. One thing was oil and gas. That kind of blew me away. How when people are mining for, or drilling for oil, then it has this gas on top of it, and then they got to burn all that off so they can get to the oil, right? But that is actually its own fuel, and it's very clean, and they just flare it and burn it on fire, and then they just burn. But Bitcoin miners can actually use that energy as a source to power the whole thing. So why are they burning that energy off? Because that's bad for the environment. That's probably the worst thing that's happening. They're burning all that off and it's creating all this problem. So this is actually helping the environment in a way because we're no longer burning off all that stuff that we would normally flare. So what's the deal with that?
Well, I think that's a really interesting use case because this is where some Bitcoiners have said and have come up with models how Bitcoin mining can become actually carbon negative in the sense that by existing, it's actually removing carbon that would have been in the atmosphere, would have been flared, for example. It's tough to some people, if you have enough of it, you can capture the methane and you can create a pipeline and you can, send the methane someplace else. But creating pipelines is not an easy thing. It is a very expensive and political nightmare to create pipelines. And so it's just so much easier to burn it. And in some cases, it's just not enough of it to really merit a whole pipeline. So, but again, with Bitcoin mining, you can just move. So if you were in a location, you use up all the methane, then you can just move to the next one. And a lot of oil wells have like a kind of like a long tail to its end. So it's not quite enough to continue drilling, like to merit continue drilling for commercial purposes. But if you're going to consume it locally, then it does make sense because it's still fuel. So there are, especially Texas, Ohio, Philadelphia, there's a few locations where they're definitely looking at their problem and seeing Bitcoin mining as a solution to suck up that methane and just use it locally. And could it be used for something else? Yeah. If you have a business that you can conduct in the middle of nowhere, next to an oil well, then yeah, there's a potential there. And I believe, and this is actually something I was talking to a friend of mine that works at Equinix, and Equinix is a data center, like real estate company. They create real estate for data centers like AWS, Google Cloud, Alibaba. And they've started reusing the heat as well. And he told me that they took a leaf from Bitcoin miners. So, Bitcoin miners, because they're smaller companies, they can also, and because their margins are often so low, they have to come up with ingenious ways of, lowering their electricity bill and, selling their heat and doing whatever they can do to maximize their profits. And so the data center industry is actually learning from Bitcoin miners that are able to operate much faster and create these case studies and R&D. And that's something that these bigger companies, it's just a much bigger lift. So it's interesting. And I think that we're going to see a lot of people learning from what miners have done, the ones that take a look at it. It's the ones that do something bad.
So much easier than trying to channel the methane from cow farts, right? I mean, there's better solutions out there. I want to know about your own personal journey through this. Like when you came into this, you were obviously looking at Bitcoin from one perspective, and you've learned a lot along the way. So how have you evolved, and how do you see Bitcoin now as different from when you began this?
Well, I've evolved my respect for energy and electricity and what a country that has access to it looks like and what a country that doesn't have access to it look like, and what a country that has access to it and yet loses its power 2 to 3 times a week looks like. And I live through that every week, as you know, Joel. It's electricity has become so vital to the life that we live today, at least the life that I live today. In a way, I'm a digital nomad. I just need internet and electricity to charge my devices and connect to the internet, to the hive. And, that's a huge privilege. It gives me a freedom of location. It gives me freedom of speech. It gives me access. There's so much that the internet and this current life can give us in terms of freedom. And if you don't have access to those things, you're just we're not equal. And I think that, and Bitcoin does the same thing for money. So money, it's different everywhere. And you have different banks devaluing it over here. And you have you have local banks, you have international banks, you have all of these, or not even all of them. There are not that many controllers of the money and who has access to it and who doesn't. And what's interesting about Bitcoin is that the fact that there's no one person controlling it, it really changes the playing field and being able to go to different places and know that I can use Bitcoin. I traveled in Europe with my kids, and they loved the fact that they were like, can't every place just take Bitcoin? Because it was so much easier than having to like change the money. And, they didn't have a credit card, so they would have to like get their cash and change the money. Yet we visited a bunch of places that accepted Bitcoin, and they were like, I can use my Bitcoin. I'm like, don't use too much of it, because they would just like spend it. If it's not fiat, we don't treat it the same way.
Hold it. You got to hodl. Now you got to teach them about hodling. That's important.
Well, I'm not a hodler. I think that Bitcoin does need to be put into circulation. I think you have to use it, but just don't use all of it.
Before you ask your question, Trav, I'll just say that your husband Rustin demonstrates that in the community. He is an amazing bread maker, and he makes sourdough, and he makes focaccia, and he makes challah bread, which I think I was the instigator for that. I was like, hey, can you do this? And we have a group on Signal called Sadoshi. And so Rustin will post pictures when bread is ready, and whoever claims it can then purchase that bread with Satoshis, and then he delivers it to your door, and it's amazing. So, I love that, you and your family are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Go ahead, Trav, ask your amazing question.
Oh, that is great. Sadoshi. That's funny. Well, that actually sort of brings it to another point where, historically, and I'm working on a new presentation right now, and I was doing research last night, and it was like, what are the killer apps and the killer apps of history, and then leading into Web3, what's the Web3 killer app? And I'm doing this presentation in Argentina, and I was thinking about, original money, right? And it was the shells, and they would use barter, and then it turned into coins, and then paper, and then it was actually, the IOUs of the coins, and then like, oh, here's a receipt that you just gave me this amount and that gold, and it's in my vault, and then they would trade that, and then paper money evolved, plastic credit cards evolved, and PayPal and stuff like that, and then here we are. A real currency that's actually using electricity and current. It's actually the first one that's actually using current. And so it's really great how that sort of as it evolved, and you really showcased the current, and people can see how the current is working to create the money, and it's not really dirty money at all. So for one, I want to give you kudos on that. And another thing I want to throw back is that we were talking about the heating elements. And so that was another one of the interesting one was in Finland. And they had these underwater, I'm not an expert in Bitcoin mining, but these underwater Bitcoin mining rigs, like they literally, you see them putting them underwater. And then I assume the water gets really hot. And then so how does that actually work? How are they pulling away the heat from those underwater Bitcoin things, and then are they pulling the steam and that's turning into energy, or how are they able to transfer that heat to other places? Because I don't think I understood that.
It's oil, what they're in, so it's liquid. They're submerged in this oil.
Okay. And oil.
Nice. And then the oil gets recycled, and so the hot oil then leaves. But the good thing about using oil or submerged cooling versus air, cooling, is that air that's, whatever's in front of it, right? So if you want to heat your home, that's fine. If you want to just put it there, and if you want to heat a greenhouse, that's fine. But if you want the heat to go further, then you need to be able to pipe it there. And so the oil can retain the heat. Then it'll go through a heat pump, and then that heat pump will increase the temperature even more. And then it can go through pipes around the whole building. And so in the case of Finland, it was an old paper mill. That one case study that I did, but there are many case studies now. And another really interesting thing. Okay, so I'll finish the thing with paper mill. The process itself created heat, and that's what heated up the whole building. When the paper mill left to China, and this is something that I noticed a lot in the countries that were already industrialized. They were experiencing, you had non-industrialized countries, and then you had previously industrialized countries that have lost their industry to China. And so now you have these countries, the ones that were previously industrialized, they have these big grids that were created for that load, for factory loads. and those loads are gone. So now you only have the residents that are taking, which is the case that's happening in Puerto Rico, for example. You had a lot more factories that were there paying those millions of dollars a month on electricity bills. And you no longer, when that factory leaves, that customer of electricity leaves. So now you just have the residents and like small to medium businesses taking advantage of that. And that's the same thing that happened in Finland. So now they had like, WeWork type co-working spaces at that super beautiful paper mill, but no process to produce heat for them. And so by, selling the electricity, then they're, and you turn that electricity into heat, then they're able to heat. But what I was going to say that's really interesting is that in Finland, there's a central heating grid. So they have an electricity grid and they have a heating grid. Heat loses its temperature. It gets colder over a long expanse, right, through distance. But electricity can keep going for longer. So what they're doing in Finland, and I saw the map and I just couldn't present it in the movie because it's currently they're obviously it's sensitive information to say where these things are, but they can transmit electricity to a Bitcoin miner, and then that Bitcoin miner can create heat so that they can then push that heat to the edges of the country that were not getting the heat grid. So they're able to expand their heat grid by electrifying these computers that are creating the heat. So it's really fascinating. And we're going to come back to countries like Finland in 5 or 10 years, and we're going to see what are the effects of that. Somebody asked me, what's Dirty Coin 2? And I'm like, Dirty Coin 2 has to happen in like 8 or 10 years. We need to see a couple more halvings. We need to see like these current case studies. We need to see them mature. And I feel like that's what I'm going to really get excited about.
Well, the real question everybody wants the answer to, of course, when we're talking Bitcoin, is when Lambo, when Moon, right? Bitcoin's not just, it's not about the money, gang. It's about so much more. It's about liberty. It's about freedom. Turns out it's about energy. And Alana, if your documentary work takes you to Kansas City landfills, maybe you can find Travis's Bitcoin because it's somewhere. It's somewhere there.
That's okay.
Yeah, I got 55 of them in there on an old computer from like 2010, 2011. Like whenever the Slashdot article came out years ago, one of the first ones, and I was like, oh, I just happened to find it. I was on the forum and I was like, dang, what is that? It's magical internet money. And then so I tested it, and then I got a block, and I was like, well, that was cool. But the problem was it ran my fan so much that the fan I ended up melting part of my motherboard, and it ended up getting screwed up. But I was able to get all of my important things like my photos off and my work documents.
Important things.
And well, the thing was, it wasn't worth anything at the time. Right. And so, and then I give myself solace of like, well, it wasn't worth anything. And then when it got up to $1,000, I probably would have sold most of it. So I would have had $50,000 then. But actually there was another site that Nick Szabo had that you could go every single day and click and claim 5 Bitcoin a day. And I was a genius, Joel. I did it once. Yeah. I did it one time.
You're like, this is stupid.
Smart. What am I was like, that was cool. Wow, nice. I put it in my wallet and everything. I was like, okay, great. I got 55 Bitcoin. And then I never thought of it again until later on when I realized, oh no, I threw away that laptop. Oh, Jesus.
And I like to bring it up from time to time because it makes for a great story. Let's wrap it up here and talk about the film and the big screenings that are coming up. You've done a lot of screenings in cities, like previews for people, and it's gotten awards and it's gotten nominations. The website dirtycointhemovie.com. But folks, this is a theatrical release, and where and when will people be able to see this film and support your efforts?
So we are doing something very innovative in our theatrical distribution, which is that we're doing screenings on demand. And so in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be listing cities all over the world where if we sell enough tickets, we are going to, the screening occurs. We don't sell enough tickets, the screening doesn't occur. Somebody wants to request a screening in their city, they can request their screening in their city through our website. So they don't have to call the movie theaters. They don't have to send them heavy files or anything. They just say, I'm in this city and I would like to watch the movie. And we then list the movie, and if we sell enough tickets, the screening occurs. So my goal would be to hit 1,000 screens. But we are going to start with around 400 screens, and then we're going to work our way up as demand demands it. So yes, so I think people should just look at the map. We're going to be literally everywhere. Bitcoin is everywhere. Most of our requests are coming from Asia, Europe, South America. Obviously, we have a bunch of demand in the United States, but I wasn't expecting so much demand from Asia that I should have known. But it's interesting. I mean, you really realize how Bitcoin is everywhere. If you're a Bitcoin meetup, for example, or if you're a person that wants to screen the movie and even earn some money, you can, because you just bill a small amount for licensing, and you can sell tickets, and you can keep the profits of your tickets as well. So kind of going back to using the principles of Bitcoin to have the movie spread itself and have it be profitable for the people that see like an opportunity to screen it. So we're going, and we're using Gather for this, and Vitalik's movie that just came out, The Infinite Garden, like I think it's called Vitalik, The Untold Story. They're using Gather as well, and they've had a tremendous success with sold out screenings all over the world. So that's for all over the world. But Joel, for us in Puerto Rico, Caribbean Cinemas is going to be screening it like a regular movie for at least a week. And if we do well with ticket sales, we will continue for 2 weeks. And that's on October 31st. That is going to be screening. So November 1st, November 2nd. The other screenings are not going to happen all in one day. They're going to happen between November and December and possibly even January. But we've also signed with Indie Rights, which is a distributor that's going to help get us in TV channels, airlines, and different other markets that are hungry for this content, and so far have responded really well. This is not a movie for Bitcoiners. I mean, Bitcoiners enjoy it, of course, but I made the movie for somebody that is not a Bitcoiner and has no information. So I'm really excited to escape the bubble from that we're in now.
I got to tell you, folks, I'm just going to say it's folks, it's better than you imagine. I'm just saying you need to support this. You need to request it in your city. You need to bring friends, bring family. They don't have to be Bitcoiners. Bring people that are environmentally conscious, that are concerned about climate change and the environment. Just scoop them all up and put them in your SUV and bring them to see this. Go, Trav.
No, I'm just, for one, it's fascinating. You were talking about, hey, here's the innovative way that we are releasing the movie. Like, it's like a decentralized way to be able to watch amazing movies on a local screen. That Gather site, I haven't seen it before, GATHR.com. Phenomenal. I love that you've partnered with them. You're using an innovative technology to promote the innovative technology of Bitcoin, and spreading the truth about it to help wake people up. Because I think this right here, if people don't like Bitcoin, I mean, people talk about, oh God, don't launch on Ethereum either, because it's so much energy usage. Oh, and this is this and that. Like wow, like we get so skewed with the truth because we get sold these narratives, and they indoctrinate us, and then if they tell the lie enough times in a row, then we believe it. And so sometimes you have to unlearn, and this right here is a great opportunity for you to help folks to unlearn the story of Bitcoin and help them learn the new one.
Excellent point. Alana, last words to mobilize the troops.
People say that they like it way more than they expected to like it. I mean, it's a movie about data centers. And so it's really like, why is that interesting? And I think that it's a movie about energy and unlocking energy. And the fact that Bitcoin can do that is kind of incredible. And I want, it's like the beginning of your rabbit hole journey, is the way I see the movie. And I really hope that people take the time to have an open mind and see what the possibilities are, because the countries and the people that are seizing the opportunity are going to be way ahead in the future. And so this really does affect us. And then one more thing is that the regulations, like why should somebody care? I mean, A, it's unlocking energy, and B, the regulation that's going against Bitcoin data centers is the vocabulary will also affect regular data centers. So it's going to affect whether your Facebook is free, whether your Instagram is free or monitored, or it's going to affect all of our behaviors online, and who can have access to AI. Now they're focusing the same concerns around AI. So this is something that even if you're not into Bitcoin, this does concern you. And if you are going to be led by feelings and you're going to be led by that manipulation, the countries that accept the FUD are going to be left behind. And the countries that understand it are going to be able to grow at such a rapid pace. So I would say that this affects everyone, and it really behooves us to understand this a lot more, because we are going to increasingly depend on data centers. And so this is the time where regulation is going to define our relationship with the internet. This is occurring now. So yeah, this is just the beginning. So I really do encourage folks to watch the movie and to continue to just keep their fingers on the pulse of what's happening underneath the table. All in the name of Bitcoin. Oh, dirty coin. Yeah. Bitcoin's bad. Regulate out of existence. Well, while they do that, they're going to write regulation that's going to affect your AI, your every other use that you have on the internet. So it's really important to keep an eye on this.
Tell me you don't want to go see this movie now, right? You trust me, it is better than whatever your imagination is telling you.
And if you don't want to go see the movie, maybe you want to go to an Italian place and get some focaccia bread and buy it with some Sadoshis. That's such a genius thing. Shout out again to Rustin. Love that dude. Really smart guy too. Like Alana and Rustin are like the awesome couple for real. I love
they're fantastic. Their kids are great, and he actually has been posting. And I'm on the road right now, so I'm like, oh man, airdrop me a sourdough loaf into Nashville, or wherever I was.
So do you like slice that up and like make sandwiches out of it?
Yes, and grilled cheese on it, on his sourdough. You slice it up and throw some, ham and cheese on there and put it on.
That sounds so good. I am retired from bread right now though, because I'm trying to stay low carb and no sugar, but I do love some good focaccia bread, so that's nice. And I love Bitcoin, and hopefully you enjoyed this and you learned some things. And if you haven't seen the movie, go out and see it now. Go check out that website, Gather, and go and look and see where, if you want to showcase the movie in your area, do it, right? This is a really cool I really love the Gather platform. It's really awesome. It allows independent filmmakers to do their thing without being tethered to the powers that be out there in Hollywood. And so go check this out. Give this some love, and eventually it'll probably be on one of the streaming platforms later on down the road. But right now, if you want to go see it, which the bull run's here, and you want to show it, Bitcoin is not dirty, and here's why, and you want to learn about it.
Yeah, it actually solves so many problems with the energy crisis. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in and turning on and dropping out. Wait, that was Timothy Leary. I'm sorry.
Wait a second. One thing actually this movie will not help you with is how to stay bad.
Who's bad?
The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor.